to represent Arnold. Okay, it's white. It's completely white. It's the shade of ivory, and so we all know that Arnold is trying to conceal his poverty. That's what he's driven by in this scene, and so I felt that this represented Arnold quite well. I chose a king for Roger because he is the king of the school, and he's also white. I could choose between black and white pieces, but I chose the whitest that I could find at my house. And then I chose this for Penelope. I chose it because it's beautiful. We know that Penelope is beautiful. I also chose it because it has a lot of little tiny round, they kind of reminded me of eyes. Do they remind you of eyes?
A little bit.
A little bit. And it seems like, even though she doesn't necessarily notice, I mean, she notices Arnold's poverty perhaps throughout, but it seems like she's rather observant, and then she finally asks him point blank. So it's also kind of multifaceted. I think that there's a lot more to Penelope than meets the eye, you know, and so there's a lot at play here. I chose inanimate objects to represent the characters and the scene, but I actually chose a princess to represent me. And I chose this because I think that we approach text as people, and we approach text as the people that we are. And especially with young adult literature, I approach text thinking about the kind of person that I was when I was that age. And when I was in high school, I was definitely on the princess plan. I talked to you last week about how, you know, I was a concert pianist, and, you know, I was the oldest of four, you know, and I'm the only girl in my family. So, you know, I definitely had more of a, I would say that my motivation was definitely more pleasing my parents, sticking with tradition, you know, doing what I was supposed to do. And so I chose this little blondie princess from my daughter's toy collection to represent me. And I also grew up in a very small town, but I was extremely well provided for by my family. So so I didn't have any worries of poverty at all. So okay, so I started my scene basically where Roger and Penelope and Arnold arrive at the restaurant. Okay, and at this point, Arnold's main motivation is, I'm kind of outside here, his main motivation is in still concealing his poverty. His goal is to just not let anyone know that he only has $5 in his pocket. But obviously, as the night wears on, and as Lindsay talked about, he thought, I'm going to just enjoy this while he can, right? I can't even pay for a stack of pancakes, but I'm going to order orange juice and hot chocolate and a side of toast, and, you know, all of these other things, even though I can't pay for it. And Roger and Penelope are here with him, and they're pretty much unaware of his poverty at that point. So they're just kind of sitting there at the table. As the night wears on, and as Arnold realizes that he has that sinking feeling that he is going to have to pay for this food eventually, he heads to the bathroom and tries to throw up and waits there for a while and thinks, oh my word, what am I going to do? What in the world am I going to do? And at that point, Roger joins him in the bathroom. And Arnold tells Roger that he left his wallet at home. He's just not feeling so great. He left his wallet at home. And Roger says, oh, no problem, man. I can spot you some cash, and just hands him $40. And at that point, Arnold is pretty shocked by receiving that money, that $40. I mean, who carries $40 around anyway? But they go back and they join Penelope back at the table. We don't know whether we assume that they pay for their food. And then they head back to Reardon's parking lot. And at this point, Penelope asks Arnold, point blank, she says, Roger told me that he had to loan you $40. Are you poor? And at that point, Arnold says, yes, I am. I'm poor. Okay? So we know, oops, sorry, forgot to move myself here. I'm definitely siding more with Penelope at this point. At that point, we know that Roger is poor, and his motivation in concealing himself at this point has been lifted. Okay? Move this too. Okay, so his web of motivation in keeping himself from being revealed is now gone. And Penelope asks him, how are you going to get home? And Arnold says, well, I usually start walking and hopefully someone will pick me up, and I've only had to walk the whole way 2 or 3 times. And at this point, she kisses Arnold on the cheek, and he realizes, first he's upset that she kisses him only on the cheek. Wishes she had kissed him on the lips. And then he realizes what a wonderful person she is. What he says is that he, at this whole time, all he'd been thinking about was her breasts. But all of that, during that whole conversation, Penelope had been thinking about his life, his whole life. At that point, I think that Arnold's motivation is it's moved from deception, perhaps, towards relationship with Penelope, and a possible relationship also with Roger. And we learn in the story, of course, that Penelope and Roger and Arnold head to the reservation to drop Arnold off. And we know that the closing line, of course, is that that Roger, being of generous pocketbook and still a tad bit racist, drove Arnold home to the reservation. Okay, but no longer motivated by this desire to conceal his poverty. The secret is out. He can now move forward and set up those relationships and perhaps be motivated to succeed at the reservations, or beyond the reservation school at Reardon. Okay, so definitely find myself still with Penelope and Roger in this scene. I've never been in a situation where I haven't been able to pay for anything. So I found myself more with Penelope and Roger than with Arnold's spirit. Felt bad for him, but found myself able to relate to their point of view more than to Arnold's. So, any questions? Okay, great.